Hello and welcome to Children of Misery. Today we're going to be drawing some elves. I've had the concept for these guys for a while, but I actually haven't drawn a lot of them. But I'll go over the basics of kind of what I'm thinking, and then I'm just going to do a little concept sheet. Basically just a couple of head designs, and you'll see what I mean by that in a minute. But I just want to get a nice variety of variations on elves. There we go. So jumping right in, elves are done in a lot of different fantasy media, and often done pretty similarly to each other. They are kind of the fair, uh, enlightened race, I suppose. Uh, they're very much associated with nature in the woods, but I wanted to bring them a little closer to nature. So what I opted to do was give them plantlers, as I have coined them in my personal notes. So basically, here's my beautiful elf. They're still gonna have the pointed ears, um, but rather than just a standard pointed ear, the ears are gonna have variants based on what kind of uh, variation of leaf they have that they're associated with. So each type of elf will be associated with some kind of plant. And so we'll get some nice variations on ears because you see we've got a lot of shapes here. So we'll still have some of the classic uh, shapes like that for ears, but we also might get fun things like the ginkgo leaf, which is one of my favorite leaves. Or maybe the ear structure isn't quite as standard. Or maybe we might get something like this guy up here. That's pretty fun. Or a maple leaf. I have no idea what a maple leaf ear looks like, but we're going to find out. And then on top of their head, they will have kind of sprouting branches off of what plant they're based off of. Thus the plantlers. And that should give us some nice variation on things. And they will change with the seasons as well. So in the springtime, they'll be blooming, and then in the winter, they'll be a bit more barren. And then I imagine their hairline will sit a tad higher and kind of go around. Around their head like that. Which does seem like a pain to deal with. The other reason I wanted to do elves in this way is because it would be very easy to cosplay an elf in this world if you have a headband with twigs on it. And you can have any variety of thing you want. So it could be flowers on top, could be your favorite tree, could be a bush or a shrub. So lots and lots of variations, lots of options. So that's what we're gonna do today. I'm gonna make a base head to start with as sort of a 3/4 view, and then from there I'm just gonna be looking up a bunch of different plants and trees and seeing what we can do with it. So let me look up some references real quick, and I will draw a head that we can use. Oh, I just realized I deleted part of my reference. So I was drawing on the wrong layer. There we go. Now we can have the right layer with the head. Get ourselves a nice basic head shape going on here. And we'll leave the ears off because we're going to have a lot of variations on ears. That'll be good. It's a little angry. Kind of just want a more neutral face. And half-elves are possible in this world. You just get less of a prominent plantler from that. The other thing that distinguishes elves from other species is that they don't have to eat as much. They're sort of a hybrid between, I guess, humans and other humanoid creatures and plants, so they can get some of their food from the sun and photosynthesize, which helps them thrive, but also they can eat. I haven't decided if they are wholly vegetarian or not. I imagine they could eat either, being descended from the same root as humans and dwarves. There's sort of a family tree, so in the world of misery, we had sort of one humanoid, and then magic entered the world and sort of messed things up. So then we started getting subtle variations on the human and getting diverging paths. So you might have sort of the shorter, stockier species. You might have the taller, kind of giant folk. You've got your human, which is the most most unchanged. Then you've got elves as well. This is not an accurate branch, but you get the idea. We've got I imagine they'd be a little bit taller than the average human. But we get all these branching paths of different variations on humanoids, all descended from the same one, because magic basically exponentially sped up evolution in that manner. So we get new species cropping up in, you know, over thousands of years instead of millions, or sometimes even faster than that, depending on how subtle a variant you're looking for. Time for my fight that every artist has with drawing the other eye or the other hand. So that'll be it might be good enough. I'll flip it and fix the proportions in a bit. Because I mainly want to focus on the plant variants. But I do need a semi-solid base here. Not too bad. Yeah, now that's looking off. I bet we can fix that with moving some features. Cool. That should be good enough to get us started. So we will just duplicate that a couple times. And we can start drawing some plant heads. Cool. What do we want to be first? I suppose I should just go for a classic elf first and choose something. Choose one of these leaves that has a more pointed shape to it. Elm would make sense. But some of these have these like jagged edges to them, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get that across in the ear itself, but we'll see. I guess I should be doing this on a separate layer. And I do want to get a little bit of the subtle veins of the leaf kind of in there. Something like that. And then as far as where the attachment point on the elf is, I suppose it could be similar to like tiefling designs in D&D. I imagine there would be some variants where you could have them more forward facing or more on the side or more on the back, depending on what is most convenient, I suppose. But let's look at an elm tree and just see what that looks like. I mean, elm is a pretty classic tree, but I am noticing that it does branch off more and has kind of a wider top than some other trees. There's like some trees that like grow up and then branch off and do their thing. That doesn't seem to be the case with the excuse me, doesn't seem to be the case with the elm as I'm looking at references. I'm seeing a lot of them that have a much lower trunk and sort of bigger branching off before further. So, a lot big wide area. So I could see it being maybe starting here. Kind of more spread apart, perhaps. And then how does it stay on? I imagine its I imagine its root system is sort of around its brain as well. Which is interesting to think about. So if the root system goes into the brain, I imagine the photosynthesis and the tree itself is a way to help get oxygen to the brain. Would that make them better? I don't know. Would that make elves more adept at holding their breath, or like they don't need to breathe with their lungs as much? Because the one disadvantage with elves in this world is they're not well suited for things like mining or anything underground or places where it's dark. Misery is a little bit challenging because there's indirect sunlight most of the time, but you do get the sun peeking through every now and again through the clouds. So it's not like there isn't. It's not like there isn't daylight at all, even with the storm that's kind of around the city. And then the other thing too is as their plantlers are growing, you sort of have an opportunity as a young elf to sort of shape them to what's going to be most convenient for you. Like pruning. Something like that. I'm going to cover this up with leaves anyway. But as long as we've got something of a base. Yeah, I really like the variety that I'll be able to get out of this for descriptions of NPCs and for other characters. I have one player in this campaign I'm running right now that is a half-elf, and she is from a family by the last name of Thorn, and so we kind of went with a rose bush as a theme for her design, which I thought was very fitting. And kind of made it into a very old family tree of generations of thorns. So she has in her design, which I'll eventually draw for the channel, she has these little rosebuds on her head that fit with her hair design, as opposed to like hair buns. We just have roses. And so the full-blooded elves in her family would probably be more like a full rose bush, but she's got just the one flower on each plantler. Cool. And then hair. Here's another thing we'll have to contend with, because with the antlers coming up and around, I imagine the hair would part differently. So we'll have to figure that out. But I'm liking where it's going so far. I might have to spread these heads out a bit if they get wide like that. And I do want to color these, because I think that would be fun. But yeah, thinking about the hairline, I think the side here still makes sense to kind of come up. Honestly, it makes more sense to sort of go like that with the hairline. Because now I need to look up hairstyles. High hairline hairstyles. We'll see what we get. Yeah, I could see this. I could see this working. So we'll get... I'll try this out. We'll get sort of a... swoop in there. Something kind of coming over like that, I think would work. I don't need to erase the head from behind there. I guess the other thing to consider is, I guess, I don't know what the 1800s hairstyle would have been. I imagine it was sort of the... Yeah, we've got kind of swoopy, swept back. Could even go down. I drew this face sort of androgynous on purpose so that I can make it male or female when I'm designing the hair, but if we get a little bit of the mutton chop down here, that would be kind of fun. But the direction that this is going still very much fits with the times. He's got a kind of... He'll have it kind of swept back. Something like that will work just fine. I might even get rid of a little bit of the jawline just to smooth it out a bit. But if we're going for classic elf here, I think that'll do just fine in terms of hair. Still fits with the style of the time, still flows with everything. And then I don't know what elm bark looks like. A birch tree would be really fun to do. We should do one of those for sure as one of the options here. What does this bark look like? It looks like bark. I guess a young elm would be more of what I'm looking for. Yeah, it's still got that kind of... No, I'm not going to go all the way up with it because I'm mainly going to do this with color and texture than drawing it, but just to get a flow and a idea. So it's kind of craggly, kind of elongated, but it goes with the flow of the tree. I mainly just want to give the impression of bark. Something like that. I think that'll work for now because I'm going to cover it with leaves in a sec. But there's a young elf. Label it so I can remember. And then I'll have to do a third layer just for the leaves and cover. I don't have any like specific leaf brushes. I have a general leaf brush from Photoshop, but I don't have any like elm or pine brushes right at the moment. I mean, those are pointed. Those will work just fine. I suppose the way to do it would be where's my opacity on this? Yeah, there we go. And there might be some darker patches in here. Especially the back branch. This is a technique you can do for a lot of digital painting stuff where you just kind of get lighter and lighter and more saturated. Usually for the last kind of highlight layer, I'll go for a more yellowy. Yeah, we're just going for a general impression here. But the general way it works, if you're interested, use it for leaves, but you start with your, if you've got a leaf brush, you can start with your darkest kind of undertone to the whole thing. I might even go darker than that. And then gradually just increase the lightness. Kind of give yourself little patches to look for, just to give it some depth and variation. So this one's a little lighter. Sometimes I'll reduce the brush size as I get lighter as well. And then you generally get kind of a vague impression of a shrub or a bush, which will suit our purpose just fine. So that's all I really need. And I definitely need to go back to the heads and kind of spread them out a little bit. Something like that. That'll work just fine. All right, what should we do next? I feel like just for fun, I gotta do a maple elf, just because I really don't know what I'm gonna do for the ears on a maple elf. Because where's our maple shape? So something generally in that. Trace that and bring it over. I suppose I can also look at the Canadian flag. That would be a good reference. Maple leaf. Yeah, the Canada flag doesn't do the bottom points quite as predominantly, which I think will work better for what we're doing. I'm seeing other references now with sort of a more 3-point heavy shape. So something more akin to that. And then it's got the kind of a five-way main vein, arteries, kind of going across. But how do we make that into an ear? Because obviously we could rotate this and just straight up do a maple leaf on the side, but I think it would be better to blend it with what we know from the human ear. Just trying to think of, like, how would you do this with, like, prosthetic makeup and add on to the ear? So this would kind of go up there, and up there for the main points. Actually, I'm seeing a sort of rounded version of a maple leaf in my references. I might try something more akin to that, because that seems more realistic. I'll start with sort of the main vein, and we'll kind of go from there, but I don't know. Maple's really weird. And then we've got the bottom part here. Like, do you make that part the open part or the closed part? I don't know. This is so weird. It's like this branch and this branch makes sense to me, because that can just become the sort of point at the top, and then this can become the lobe down below. Like, that much makes sense to me. I guess, do you do this third one kind of lower? And then sort of just like exaggerate the middle part. I mean, that seems a bit better. Something like that. I don't know, I feel like that looks weird. I think the maple leaf is going to look weird no matter what. Is there like a tall maple leaf? Like a skinny maple leaf variant? There is, but it is even more exaggerated with the... I think it's the cuts that are... These like deep valleys going in here. That's throwing me off. Because there's some... I'm seeing there's some maple leaf variants that are more shaped like this. This would come up a little higher. And that makes more sense to me than the other one. And this could even be a bit more. A bit more rounded. Same down here. Maybe that's the way to go. Yeah, or we can, here we can kind of just extend off of the earlobe. And then we still get that base shape. That's looking better. That looks a lot less uncanny to me. And then we could still have a maple ear. And honestly, this could even be a little bit more rounded. Something like that. And then what do maple trees look like? Like a young maple tree. Maples have those skinnier little branches. Like I feel like the branches that hold up the individual leaves are pretty thin. It's got a pretty decent trunk. And I wonder if like a more forward facing one where it grows. Maybe it grows back more. Because this has a bit more of a structure to it at the base. It does split off pretty early. But I feel like just from what I'm looking at in my other screen, I'm seeing the branches off are less even. It seems like the main trunk continues up pretty consistently. Realizing I'm probably drawing outside my boundary right now. Something like that. Couple little thin branches. As they sort of divulge off, that'll look fine. Something like that. And then let's try to find a new hairstyle. Yeah, this is looking kind of nice. I'll do one that's kind of put up in the back. This will be I'm looking at sort of a Victorian women's hairstyle. Let's put more put back. We'll still get a little bit of the baby hairs off to the side. But for the most part, we'll get something like that, and we'll do a little bit of a get in a little bit of a braid into the side. That's sort of tucked in. This part will just be pulled back. That makes sense to me. And then the back here kind of holds itself together in a little knot work. My little tip for drawing braids is just sort of going in a sort of just a pattern like this, and then you get the sort of edges defined. And then, of course, everything sort of flows. Into one another. Something like that. At least to give the idea. I think that will suffice for now. Oh shoot, I've been drawing on the wrong layer. Oh well. Actually makes it a little bit easier. Wait, what layer is this on? There we go. Yeah, I've been drawing that on the head layer. Oh well. That's okay. okay. Maple bark. What does maple bark look like? Okay, maple has a lot of variations on bark, apparently. Let's go with the one that seems nicest to draw. And then leaves were probably... Do I have any brushes that have a maple leaf in them? I don't know if I do. Got some skin brushes, but that doesn't help me. I've got grass. I guess, are there any grass elves? I don't know if that would be a thing or not. I feel like I wouldn't be able to do the ears for a grass elf. Nah. Okay, we'll stick with the regular foliage brush for now. That'll be fine. We could do... It'd be fun to do like an orange. Give this one some color variation. Something like that. Just to get an idea. Cool. Next one. What are we gonna do? Lots of interesting leaves to choose from. Ooh. I ruined my window. There we go. Let's see. I feel like I should do a ginkgo. Ginkgos are fun. They're also a bit more twiggy. They're not like the big trunked trees per se. Something like that. It's almost like a fin for the side of the head. So that works pretty well in terms of design. It's honestly one I don't think anyone would mind if I just take the actual leaf and rotate it. And then we can just tweak it from here. So this can become the lobe. This can become the top part of it. It almost looks normal. Yeah, ginkgo branch. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Because they're much more distinct. So you could really see the excuse me. You can really see the individual leaves on a ginkgo. So I might put them a little bit further back. Yeah, sometimes they'll have a little branch off, but not much. And I imagine you could prune that pretty easily. Something like that. That'll be good. And then back to hairstyles, I suppose. I imagine there's probably some cases where the hair doesn't grow around it per se, but kind of just around it. That was a terrible sentence. Not avoiding it like that kind of a hair line, but more of something like that. All right. We got a ginkgo elf. We got a maple elf. We got an elm elf. What other leaves do we have? Or I feel like the top row should be tree varieties, and then the bottom row we can go for other types of plants. I do want to do roses at some point. Ooh. Actually, I have a sketch somewhere. I should have scanned it and brought it in here, but I had a sketch of an apple tree elf at some point, which is kind of interesting about fruit-bearing trees. Because, like, do you do you sell the fruit that grows off your head? Like, what do you do with that? I guess you could eat it. I guess in that sense, is it cannibalism if you grow an apple on your head and then eat the apple? Or does that nourish the human part of you from the plant part of you? I guess all of the sunlight you're absorbing would go into producing that fruit. Still kind of weird, though. I imagine your mood would affect the fruit you would grow as well. So what does an apple tree leaf look like? Oh, that's easy. That's just a standard leaf. Fantastic. We love standard leaves. We can make that work. It's actually more rounded than a standard leaf, so we'll kind of go like that, and then yeah. It's a pretty rounded leaf for the most part. It does have jagged edges. I don't think I'm gonna do super jagged edges for ears just because I think that looks a little weird. At least in this translation of it. I don't know, the maple ear is still the weirdest one to me. But I'm gonna try to recreate the idea I had for the apple tree elf. And what I had drawn before in my sketchbook. So another thought I had about elves to kind of lead into that point is I imagine there's probably competitions, like botanical competitions of like for elves and like curating their plantlers into different designs and different configurations, or like it's just sort of a lifelong achievement sort of award for how you maintain your plants. Because like humans take a lot of pride in growing things. Let's see if I can find a reference and I'll put it in here. Yeah, here we go. Stuff like this, where get that any bigger. Stuff like this, where like you plant your trees and then like you braid the branches around each other, or you like curve it in a specific way and make shapes with it. Like I imagine there's gotta be a ton of elves out there that do exactly the same thing. Yeah, or like when you split it and then bring it back in on itself, so you get like a little hole in here. So that's kind of the approach I wanted to do with this apple tree elf. Is like this is a for show kind of tree. Something like this where it kind of goes up and around and it's all braided around itself. And like there would be elements on it where sort of like that where things have been trimmed off. It's like branches that would have been growing there. I don't know, sort of just absorbed into the bark. But something like that. Or it's just this little craggly braided thing that loops around on itself. And then what is a... I need to look up what apple flowers look like. Because you probably have some of those on here as well. So you'd have some branches off to the side here just to have like flowers sticking up. And a nice shiny apple on the side here. Ooh, I see some questions. Do all plant type elves exist? What blackberries or even poison ivy would they be drow like? There are also mustache competitions. I imagine it'd be similar to that. Yes, absolutely. Very similar to a beard and mustache competition. But as far as like all the different types of plants, I'm not sure. I think it would be poison ivy would be interesting. So one of the benefits that elves have in the system for the custom race that I made for it is that elves actually have resistance to poisons because things that would affect humans don't necessarily affect plants in the same way, and vice versa. So the human part kind of counteracts the plant part, and vice versa. That doesn't mean they're not going to feel terrible if they ingest poison of some kind, uh, but they do have a higher tolerance for things like that. So but yeah, as far as all plant types, I think it just depends on. This is a kind of a dumb reason, but it kind of just depends on if I can design an elf around that thing. But yeah, I imagine berry bushes would be fair game. But yeah, poison oak and like poison ivy and poison sumac, all those like things, and like just nettles in general. I don't know. It'd be a really good defense, and I guess that would mean that plant. I guess plant elves would have to be immune to stuff like that, because like I don't know, are apple tree are other trees affected by poison ivy? Let's find out. Does poison ivy affect other plants? Poison ivy is unsightly and can actually crowd out the plants that you want. Not only does it take over the area, it also steals valuable water, nutrients from your favorite plants. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a weed, but if you're the only variant, then no, I don't think it would get in the way of anything. I see no reason why there couldn't be a poison ivy elf. Venus flytrap plants, yeah. Those do exist. I want them to exist. I'll try to draw one for the bottom row. I think that would be super fun. Cause like, I honestly can't think of a reason to stop elves from eating meat. I feel like I don't know. Would does here's the world building question. Should elves be omnivores or should they be herbivores? Because that's gonna change. That would change things. They're descendant from the one kind of proto human species. So I don't imagine they would change that much. I feel like the plant like elements were adapted on top of being an omnivore. So I feel like they have the option for meat. Maybe meat just doesn't taste as good to elves. Maybe that's it. Where it's like they've gotten to like elves have gotten to a point in their evolution where they don't really need meat as much and the nutrients like that because they're getting nutrients from sunlight. They don't need to eat as much either. So they probably don't eat 3 meals a day. But they probably drink water quite a bit. Oh, fungi. I think fungi are different. I'm pretty sure fungi is a completely different family. The thing about, because the thing with fungus is that they are prominent, but their roots don't really go that deep, so they don't, like, they're like mushrooms are easy to pick, and that seems counterintuitive to having antlers or plantlers. I call them plantlers. They're not at all like deer antlers because deer antlers do fall off. These are not falling off. These grow with you as you get older. But let's get back into here. I want to get this flower guy. Get some knots in his trunk here. I imagine the hairstyling for these competitions would be just as important as the branches, right? And then probably have... I guess I can do the leaves with the leaf brush. But like something like this, where like this person has clearly gone out of their way to shape their branches in a particular way and like cut off kind of the excess branches as prominent with the knots in the tree from like where branches used to be, and then you cut them off and you kind of shave it down. I mean, I feel like bald is also a pretty bold look for an elf as well, just because you can really focus on what the plant looks like. And like, just like there's people that like maybe don't take care of their hair, there's probably elves that don't take care of their trees either, and sort of get them caught and stuff, or they're kind of untamed. But yeah, a botanist barber, like elf barbers, would be absolutely a job. There's enough elves in the world, I feel like, that you would have specific elf barber shops that also do plants, which is such a weird profession to have to go into because you have to study botany but also beauty. I suppose that makes sense. We got two people. Hello. I don't know who's here, but if you're joining us, we're drawing elves. And elves in this world are kind of plant based, so they've got these plantlers. So we've just been doing different variants on elves. We got a little elm, a little maple, a little ginkgo. And now we're doing an apple tree. Now I gotta figure out what hair goes with an apple tree, because I don't know. I am going to get some green leaves in there. Probably just little ones. I feel like it looked better when I had the opacity. Well, I guess the scale would be... something like that. But yeah, much more tamed, and like obviously bonsai tree would be a really good option as well for something like this. But yeah, let's get back to the hair. What hair do we give this guy or gal? Again, I drew the head androgynous on purpose. What do we got here? Goodness, hair is complicated. It's got to be something that leaves room on the sides, because that's where the antlers are growing out of. So yeah, let's take a look at... Actually, I can bring it over on the screen. This is what I'm looking at right now. Just trying to find hairstyles that would work with this. I'm seeing this one right here. It's very tiny. But that's sort of a nice option. Ooh, that's fun. Where it's kind of split on the side. Or split in the middle there. That certainly gives us options. Yeah, things like this too, where it's just kind of built up. Yeah, something like this where, because the sides are going to be bare because that's where the plants are growing out, but something built up in the back maybe to like highlight the apple and then put stuff in the hair would be kind of fun. So we could have some curls in the front maybe. And then little tip for just really basic hair stuff. If you have a curved area of hair, when you're shading it, just leaving a, basically doing something like that which, like, up close like this doesn't really look like much, but once you get the rest of it in there and sort of get that in there, then you've got sort of the shine going on in the hair. That's what I'm going to be doing on these little strands in the front. That'll just give the impression that it has shine and dimension to it. I don't really know exactly what's going on here, I'll be honest. But as long as it gives fancy impression, that's good enough for me for the purpose of today. And just banging out a concept. So it's all just sort of bunched up here. So something like this, and then we could put something in the hair. We could put little beads or something. Just something to highlight the apple on top. You want to see a goofy one, like a bowl cut or a mullet? Maybe. I don't know. I feel I kind of have to base everything off of the era that Misery is based on, so I'm looking mainly at sort of 18 pretty much any, it's a long period of time, but pretty much anything from like late 1700s to late 1800s, anything in that century is pretty fair game. There are some goofy ones, mainly in like lower class folk. Like I see a lot of kids with goofy haircuts on occasion when I'm looking up reference images for stuff. There we go. I like the beads around here. It also helps hide my seams. And then we could add a little... I feel like we could add a little thing up top, or maybe on the back even. Because we could have like kind of bows going on here. Sort of like a 5-point bow on the back to kind of mirror the apple. I want something up here to like help frame the apple, like some kind of like tiara type thing. It's like some kind of... I should look up a reference. I should not. I should not do this off the dome. Hair accessories. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Yeah, these like little combs that you can just push into your hair. Style combs. Yeah, something like that. You get the idea. Yeah, from a distance, I think that works. So this is like this is the show hair. Cool. I think that'll do good enough for the trees. I'll color these later, but we got elm, we got maple, we got ginkgo, we got apple. Now let's get into some of the other ones. I do want to do roses because I have a character that has roses in our campaign. So let's look up some rose bushes. Although I have been going for 2 hours at this point, so it might be a good point to stop for now. But we can at least plan out what we're gonna do. Because I do have to leave pretty soon. But yeah, let's plan out. Maybe we'll continue this. Maybe I'll do a surprise part 2 stream later on. I usually do a stream every other week, but maybe I could finish this next week. I've got a poll up on the channel in the post section for ideas for future streams. So if you guys have a preference for what you want to see next, go ahead and vote, because that'll let me know. I think one of them I've got like the church stuff, which is interesting because that one I have a lot of ideas for. I just haven't actually drawn any of it yet. And then Titans, of course, those are big and important. What else do I have on there? I forget, but go vote. I think I am going to put Poison Ivy on here just because I think that's a really interesting idea, and I don't know what that would look like. I don't know exactly what that would mean, but I'm fascinated by it. I could easily see like a criminal character being a Poison Ivy elf. I think that would be pretty great. But what other kinds of plants? Roses would be like a bush or a shrub. We got Poison Ivy, that's sort of a thing. Maybe a vine, types of vines. I guess ivy is a vine. Grapes. A grape elf. Yeah, perennial vines. Because there's vines that flower. Types of vines with flowers. Oh, these are cool. Yeah, I definitely want to do something like this. A melon? I have no idea. God, I don't know how that would work. I don't think gourds would work. I don't think I could do a pumpkin elf or a melon elf. I don't know what you would do. Like, you can't just have a melon on your head. It would fall off. There's got to be limitations to this. There's got to be some that are, like, really rare to have. I feel like the fruit trees and the berries are good, stable variants. Like a blueberry. Oh, a blueberry elf would be really fun. Yeah, I don't know what this vine is called, but I'm really enjoying this. I'll post it in the file here, just so I can see it later. But something like this, where it like kind of grows down the side for like a longer hairstyle. Or you could take your vine and kind of wrap it around your hair, make it more versatile. I think that would be really interesting. But yeah, melons. I don't think that would work. I can't conceive. Or like a squash. Like a squash wouldn't work. Where are you gonna put that thing? I have another NPC that has, oh, what are these called? It's not this one. It's got like red bark. Winter bark? Is that what it's called? Fine gardening. Here's an article on it. Corna sericea? Is that what these are? That might be what I'm looking for. There's a type of plant that has really bright red. Dogwood? Is it dogwood? Oh, yeah, I think it is. Like red. Here, I'll copy it in here. This like red dogwood plant is I had a concept for a character at one point that had antlers made of stuff like that. Just because it's such a stark contrast to everything else. But I've seen these in real life before. They're like extremely bright red. But it's getting kind of late in the morning. I guess it's afternoon now. And I think I'm in a pretty good spot to continue this a different time. So I think I'm going to end the stream here, but thank you for joining and giving your suggestions. And we'll come back to this because I'm enjoying this. I feel like we could keep doing this for a while. This is a good one to come back to. Just to do simple concepts here and there. But I'm liking how the elves are looking. I'm liking the variety that we have so far. But I'll see you next time. I've got videos coming.